So you want to talk about real stuff? You want to actually like have actual conversations that are helpful to the people in these communities instead of just using them as a prop for your election. You know, like the immigrants come across the border. Oh my God! One of the things that people don't get is a lot of these Venezuelans are running from this transnational gang. They are leaving Venezuela because Venezuela has been incapable of keeping people safe from these gangs. And then some of those people are coming over here from those gangs. And when we don't have the ability, government to government, to speak in a way where we say, we need to know, like, why are these criminals coming over here? We need to know who they are. We need to be vetting these people. We need to stop them at the border and having a real conversation about it. Instead, you're going to use them as a prop in your 2024 election to get yourself elected. And then you ain't going to say another goddamn word about it until it actually in some way helps you out to get elected again. Like, Kamala Harris is actually doing something about this. The countries she's going to, the countries that she went and talked to and talked about trade agreements and improving infrastructure and asking where can we be helpful, we have had reduced amounts of immigration from those countries. So anyways, I know that a lot of people have already been talking about this Venezuelan army gang craziness, whatever people believe is going on. But I haven't, so I figured I'd get on here, have a little talk with you guys before I go to the soccer game tonight, and give you my point of view, because I have a different point of view than most people, I think, because of the way that I grew up and my experience with, like, gangs and growing up in, like, really poor areas of the country. And immigrants, my dealing with immigrants. I even saw, I have a video queued up, a dude that's a biker gang. Apparently people are now asking the Hells Angels to do something about Venezuelans. I don't know if you guys know this or not. The Hells Angels are not superheroes. I grew up with a couple, and I can tell you this: the only time they're going to do anything about any gang is if they're in their territory taking over stuff. These are like, I go out with people. I go to motorcycle club meetings with my mom when I was real small, and most of those type of people, real good people. You know, they do things like the toy run. They do big bike runs. They're really community driven kind of people. But they're not generally the hardest people you're gonna meet in your life. They're just people that like to ride motorcycles, and some of them have like a little bit of a varied history and stuff like that. Some are some tough motherfuckers. A lot of them are veterans, so you get a lot of tough people there. But comparing like your local motorcycle club chapter to the Hells Angels or the Sons of Silence or the Mongols, I don't even know, are the Mongols still around? I'm sure they are. It's night and day. Hells Angels kidnap people. Hells Angels murder people. Hells Angels sell drugs and take over apartment buildings and fleece landlords. It's really weird to me, and it just goes to show how disconnected from reality people are if you are asking the Hells Angels to do something about Venezuelan gangs. But anyways, I want to get into that a little bit. I watched a TYT video that was as cringy as fuck and as annoying as fuck as it can be, because they have no idea what it's like to live in these areas and understand what's actually going on with these gangs. And guess what, guys? Gangs have been doing bad shit in areas like these since the 20s, probably earlier than that, probably since like mankind began. And get you know, it's all of a sudden this big deal because some immigrants broke into somebody's house. Dude, people broke into my house tons of times when I was a kid. Somebody tied up the woman next door and stole all her pot and her Nintendo. Stole her Nintendo. That's the part I was mad about. Like, I was listening to the ghetto copter going over the top of... We were sleeping outside on some couches, because that's what you do in the ghetto. And this lady got tied up and all of her weed stolen. Guess what? It wasn't immigrants. They weren't from Venezuela. Yeah, so let's watch this. I want to give my point of view on this, because I think almost all these points of view on this are cringe as hell, to be honest with you. It's like, people don't have any lived experience. people sit behind TV screens or computer screens and type out their opinions on this shit without ever actually like having lived in these areas and know what it's like. Like this idea that these guys like took over an apartment building. These aren't organized crime units. This isn't the mafia. That's not how these things work. And it boggles my mind, and influencers are driving me fucking nuts right now, because most of these people have zero lived experience, and they get on this shit and they talk about it like they know something about it, and they're exaggerating it for money. They just want you to get worked up about these things. Like I've watched my mom like get the shit beaten out of her in my front room, in my living room. Like when I was like, I think I was like 8, 9 years old. Like people all of a sudden are concerned about those people. When did this happen? Like forever. I mean, up until like 2 days ago, we were the criminals that lived down there. We were the people that you hated, the people that you were disgusted with, the people that you disliked. Now all of a sudden, because you want to be racist against immigrants, now you come to our support. Now all of a sudden you're gonna play superhero, put on the cape. You dumbasses are out there saying that the Hell's Angels are gonna come save us. How fucking stupid are these people? Like, you have zero life experience if you think that the Hell's Angels are gonna come to to be the saviors of an apartment complex in a poor area. That's not how this works, you fucking idiots. So I thought I'd get on here and talk about it, because I'm like, this shit is cringe. This is the most like, we're gonna use this to get election votes shit I've seen in a while. So let's watch it, and we'll kind of go over a little bit as we go here. Thanks for being here, guys. I know it's early.
National correspondent Dan
What up,
Grossman
Nana?
is looking into this story for us. Dan, what have you learned?
Marisa, police here in Aurora, Colorado tell us they do not believe that there is any gang takeover here at the Lowry Apartments, the Edge at Lowry Apartments, which are right behind me, as some on social media.
Yeah, and look, man, like I said, the gangs don't take over apartment buildings. This isn't organized crime. People don't understand how gangs work. Most of these like lower level gangs, and I know that this is a transnational one, but like MS-13 and stuff like that, there's tons of infighting. There's tons of people killing other members and stuff like that. This isn't fucking like an Italian mafia movie where these dudes are, like going from door to door and taking rent money. These are people that are robbing motherfuckers. This is how this works. And like I said, I know like people don't get that. Like, you're not from that. I understand that's a good thing, but this is not how anything works. Like, yeah, like these apartment buildings are probably terrorized by these gangs, but this isn't something new. I guarantee if this is the type of area where that kind of shit happens, then it's been happening for a long time. Like, one of the worst parts about living in these types of areas is the idea that like we terrorize our own folk. Like, I've said this before, it's like a bucket of crabs trying to get out of the bucket, and every time you try to climb up the bucket, the crabs are pulling you back down. Like, this is what people in these areas do to each other. It doesn't matter if they're Venezuelan or Mexican or white. Like, where I grew up was all skinheads and peckerwoods. You think that like all of these people were from here and they're committing crimes on their own people consistently. Like, this is like, it has nothing to do with being an immigrant.
Have purported. Now, this all deals with Tren de Aragua. They are a
you found a picture. What picture you find, guy?
Criminal organization from
Venezuela.
And this week, we heard for the first time residents who live in these apartments.
This video showing men entering an apartment in Aurora, Colorado
and this is what I'm saying. This is like not having lived experience. I understand, like, to a lot of people, like, seeing this video was probably like mind-blowing, right? Like, oh my God, this is so crazy that this is happening now. Now this is happening. because Joe Biden's the president, because Kamala Harris is running for president. This is why this is happening. It's happening now. No, it isn't. I've seen this shit in real fucking life. This is why this is so goddamn dumb to me. All of a sudden, the internet exists and everybody gives a shit that people are getting robbed in an apartment building. Like, I'm going to tell you guys a real personal story. When I finally moved out of where I was at, okay, so we had moved out of the neighborhood when I was 16. And we had moved to an immigrant town, mind you, a farm working town, where it was fucking perfectly safe, by the way. Like, it was the safest I had ever been in my life. When I was like 16, we moved to an immigrant town in Central California, in the San Joaquin Valley. And it was the safest I'd ever been. But my ass was still so inundated with the culture and still a part of all the bullshit that was going on that I used to drive back into the area that I'm from, that I wanted to, still be around my people. Like, we get pulled over coming out of the neighborhood, and cops would tell us stuff like, well, you should find different friends. Like, like, you're going to just keep getting pulled over every time you come here. Because I was still involved in messing around with all this dumb shit, right? And so, yeah. So, there's a girl that I wasn't dating, but I was hooking up with at the time. She had a young kid, and she was staying in these motel rooms that was part of this horseshoe trailer park motel room area that I grew up in. And a man had came to her motel room in the middle of the night and knocked on the door. And when she opened the door, he burst in and he sexually assaulted this girl with her kid in the room for the night, right? Like, and me and a friend of mine, my best friend, and other people from the neighborhood, we were going to go do something about this. We had made the decision that we were going to go do something. We knew where this dude was holed up. He was down the street in another motel, and we knew where he was, and we were going to go do something about this. And when we were about to do it, the girl had actually came and said, hey, don't. Like, I don't want this to be anything more. I don't want to go to the cops. I don't want to, like, this is the mentality of growing up in these areas, is that life is fucked and no one cares. And this is why this is so cringe to me, that all of a sudden all these people care because it happens to be Venezuelan gangs. But this dude, he was American. This dude lived down the street. I didn't think he was a gang member. He was just a dude that lived in the same neighborhood. And when she said, she didn't want to do anything about it, she said, like we were probably going to prison. I'll be honest with you. What we were going to do to that man was not something that normal society would have accepted. And she said she didn't want to go to the police. I think he did get arrested, but I think she refused to testify. That's when I made the decision to move. I was like, I'm going to go to prison if I stay here. Like, I have to go. I can't be here anymore. I'm going to do something stupid. And that's why I moved to where I live today. And that was the best thing that I could do, right? Like, there is definitely times in my life growing up in this area that I did things that should have put me in jail, if not prison, juvenile hall when I was younger. And I'm so glad that, like, I am where I am today. But it drives me up a fucking wall to watch people, like, their minds get blown by this video. Like, this shit has been happening forever. And now you're mad? Now you're mad? You can go fuck yourself.
Has been the subject of national scrutiny. We're using a still of the video that shows the men who appear to be armed at the door to an occupied apartment. An Aurora police spokesperson tells Scripps News the video is authentic and was recorded the night of August 18th. Shortly after, police say they used a search warrant to obtain the long gun seen in the video. Police say they found it while investigating a nearby shooting that detectives believe involved the same people. The video has garnered the attention of former President Donald Trump, who has spoken about it on the campaign trail.
And we've got to be tough, because if you see what's happening in Aurora, Colorado today, did you see that? Where Venezuelan...
Yeah, he don't care. Like, this is what I'm saying. This ain't nothing new. Oh, yeah, you care now? You know the number of times people have said stuff like this? The internet didn't always exist, so you guys didn't get to see videos of this stuff happening. But people have always been playing that they care for a really long time. They've been playing that they care for a real long time.
Venezuelan gang members have taken over parts of the city. They've taken over
parts of the city. Like, this man has never been in a place where he don't feel safe. Like that, like, apparently once at his own rally. At his own rally. Like, my wife got really mad at me because we went to the Bay one time. And we were going to a physics lecture, but I parked us in probably the worst part of the town we possibly could, right? And on the street, there is a bunch of homeless people, a lot of drug addicts and stuff. We were in the wrong area. But I'm comfortable, like, because I know that these are just people. I know they got stories, too. I know that, like, at the end of the day, I wouldn't say I feel safe because I'm always on point when something like that's going on. But I would say that I understand the culture, right? And so my wife almost divorced me because we walked through the middle of some of these groups, because you don't bring attention to yourself by stepping off the street, by walking crossing the street and stuff like that. And also, these aren't gang members. These were mostly drug addicts and homeless people. And they just living their life, right? So I walk right through it. I tell them, well, you got to walk like you got something to do. When people say dumb shit, by the way, we're safe. We got through it. And I even point out to my wife, I'm like, when you got kids with you, like, a lot of these people, like, they recognize kids. It's across the board. In fact, I heard this biker dude talking about it earlier today, talking about how, like, you know, bikers big on protecting kids and stuff. Like, there's a gang that's Bikers Against Child Abuse, BACA. And, you know, it's kind of like a universal thing, right? Like, kids are always to be protected. It don't matter if you're in a gang. It don't matter if you're a biker. It don't matter if you're just poor people or homeless people on the street. It's a universal rule. So, like, there's, like, one time we were walking through and there's an older lady in the midst of probably, like, 8 to 10 people, I would say. And we're kind of weaving our way through them. And I'm like, excuse me, just coming through. Excuse me. You know, and you hear this old lady go, hey! And she hits this dude with her cane. You know, she's like, there's kids. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. There's kids. You know? And it, like, when you say something dumb, they're taking over the parts of the city. Generally, what you got when you go into gang areas is you got multitudes of different gangs that are fighting with each other over certain areas. But it's not like they control, like, the fucking, the corner store. Like, fucking, you know, like, it's generally they tag in stuff. They commit violence in the area. They take over corners for drugs. The streets that I grew up on had a lot of prostitution. So there was lots of pimps that would hang out, and, like, you couldn't have another girl walking on the same, you know, street or being on the same corner, stuff like that. Like, once again, it's like you have to have some lived experience to understand why this is so goddamn cringy to me and why it's so irritating.
Apartment houses.
This week, residents who live at the complex held a news conference saying they haven't seen a large-scale gang presence or a takeover.
Here, none of us feel threatened. We don't feel threatened by any gangs. We feel threatened by the owner of this apartment who asks us constantly
to... And see, this what this gentleman is saying right here, this makes sense to me. Because generally, it isn't what you think. Like I said, like, if you see a bunch of dudes, they're all rocking blue rags on a corner, like, you probably don't want to be up in the middle of that, okay? But the violence that happens in these areas is generally sporadic. It's what makes it so scary, because you don't know when it's going to happen. This isn't some kind of, like, concerted effort where you, like, know what's going to happen. Generally, the things that happen to you in these areas are very sporadic, and that's why they're scary. This guy's right. When you're in a community like this, like we used to have block parties. We'd shut down one block to the other, and we 4th of July or whatever, everybody would come out, drink, smoke, and like the whole block would be okay. Like we'd be all fine with each other because there's community within these really poor areas, and that's the only way you do fight back against gangs, because nobody else gives a shit. I don't care how many. This is flavor of the week. And this is only flavor of the week because immigration's a big deal in the election. That's the only reason any of these people care. That's why it's so important for them to say Venezuelan. Venezuelan. You guys want to know something funny? So we had a Mexican gang in my neighborhood. And one of my friends, his name was Kassan. He was an Arabic dude. And he was in the Mexican gang, right? Like... It isn't just Venezuelans, you fucking dipshits. Like, I get it. But what this dude's saying, the real injustice that's going on is that the government hasn't done enough for the poverty-stricken groups of in our society. That we haven't provided these people with social safety nets that can help them get out of these areas and be productive members of society, so that way they are not influenced to join violent gangs. So that way they are not being terrorized by sporadic violence. I used to walk, my junior year, I decided I was going to join the ROTC because I wanted to be an Air Force pilot. Now, I hadn't gone to school very much in my freshman and sophomore year, so this was just like a wild hair up my ass. My whole family's military, so I'm like, that's what I'm gonna do. And I used to walk to school in the Air Force uniform with just cat hair all over me because my mom had like 30 cats. I'm not even fucking kidding, like 30 cats, like through the ghetto in an Air Force uniform. Like the type of shit I got for that. Like, there is not a lot of support coming from other people in these areas, and the only support you're getting is from people like this dude, the community coming together and fighting against it. The real tragedy to why this is such a cringe-ass topic for people to be talking about is they don't have any life experience to back up any of their fucking opinions.
Pay a high rate.
Residents of the apartment complex said there are gangs, but they have not run into any members of the Tren de Aragua themselves.
Yeah,
in a one-on-one interview with Script,
MAGA's a worse gang than most gangs.
News Denver, the city's mayor, Mike Kaufman, a Republican, said he went to the apartment complex accompanied by members of the Aurora Police Department to see it for himself.
It seems that in some of those criminal elements have come up here, and that, for instance, Venezuela does not cooperate with the United States with our immigration services when it comes to sharing criminal histories. So it's difficult to vet people at the border.
Kaufman has...
And that's what I'm saying, like, so you want to talk about real stuff? You want to actually like have actual conversations that are helpful to the people in these communities instead of just using them as a prop for your election, like the immigrants come across the border, oh my God. You want to have real conversations? We can have real conversations. Because the MAGA right keeps saying that Kamala Harris was a border czar. Yet they don't even understand. Like the government, the White House puts out statements on these things when a person is given like a certain task, right? So Kamala Harris, what she was given the job of going to the South American, Central American countries and helping to find ways to improve infrastructure within the countries by creating like trade deals or asking them like, what can we do to make it so these people don't want to leave your country? What can we do to create a partnership between our country and your country that stops people from fleeing? Because one of the things that people don't get is a lot of these Venezuelans are running from this transnational gang. They are leaving Venezuela because Venezuela has been incapable of keeping people safe from these gangs. And then some of those people are coming over here from those gangs. And when we don't have the ability, government to to speak in a way where we say, we need to know, like, why are these criminals coming over here? We need to know who they are. We need to be vetting these people. We need to stop them at the border and having a real conversation about it. Instead, you're going to use them as a prop in your 2024 election to get yourself elected, and then you ain't going to say another goddamn word about it until it actually in some way helps you out to get elected again. Like, Kamala Harris is actually doing something about this. The country she's going to, the countries that she went and talked to and talked about trade agreements and improving infrastructure and asking where can we be helpful, we have had reduced amounts of immigration from those countries. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what's helpful. That's what's positive. Not just villainizing a whole goddamn community in Aurora and saying, now there are a bunch of Venezuelan transnational gang members that are taking over apartment buildings, brother. Bring in the Hells Angels! That's fucking stupid.
Tiptoed around questions about the gang's presence, saying it
What up,
appears
Fatty?
the
What up,
building
Renee?
is not being run by management. But when pressed on whether he has received confirmation from authorities
Paul?
on whether TDA is present, he has said he is not.
I think people are excited about that, oh, it's a transnational gang. And, I'm obviously concerned about it, but, quite frankly, to me personally, what matters is we get these people off the street.
Yeah, that's the fucking point. It don't matter if they Venezuelan, it don't matter if they Bloods, Crips, Colonia, fucking Norteño, Sereno, it don't matter if they skinheads, Peckerwoods, Featherwoods, Sir 13, it don't matter what the fucking race is. It don't matter where they came from. If they're committing crimes, that's what should be focused on, man. Like, it's insanity that we have so many people in these areas, these poor areas, that are struggling to just, like, make it through their day, to be productive portions of our society. And the only time that certain people in our society give a shit about it is when they can use it for political gain to go, look at the Venezuelans. You should elect me because I'm going to stop the Venezuelans. I got a spoiler alert for you. You ain't stopping those people. Like the video I watched earlier, dude went over a wall that had razor wire across the top of it, razor wire on the ground with a rope, and he took the rope off, and ran across the border. Like, we're going about this in the wrong way. And we can't have real good conversations about these kind of things until people stop polarizing this subject and making it into something that it's not. MS-13 is a problem. The De Agua, whatever this gang is, they a problem. But so are the Southside Bloods, the Mid-City Crips, the fucking Nazi lowriders. Like, this isn't individualized to an immigrant problem. This is specific to poverty-ridden areas in America, across the goddamn country. That's what needs to be helped. And like, one of the things that we don't get to talk about enough is that just putting people in prison isn't the answer. Privatized for-profit prisons aren't the answer. There are definitely people that cannot participate in society because their mental illness does not allow them to do so. But putting them in prison for 4 years and then letting them back out on the street, that ain't the answer. It's reducing recidivism. It's social safety nets and helping poverty-stricken people recognize that they can do something with their life and become productive parts of society. Like, there are certain people in my life growing up that if they didn't exist, I wouldn't be here. I mean, right here. I might be in prison. I might be dead. I might still be somewhere doing stupid shit. But I wouldn't be right here if it wasn't for those people. Like, That's what you actually have to talk about. Like this guy's saying, if you busting in somebody's house and you taking their shit, you robbing them, we got to figure out why this person's doing that. We got, maybe you can't save him, but maybe you can save his little brother. Maybe you can save his cousin. Maybe you can save the next person that comes into America and wants to do well, but then gets caught up in one of these gangs. Maybe you could help out a person by raising the minimum wage in fast food, so that way selling drugs doesn't make more sense. When I was young, you could get a double up. And the double up was you could go to a dude who was like on probation or something like that, parole, and he was gonna have a visit from his parole officer soon, and he had $400 worth of cocaine. And he could sell that to you for $200 because he just needed to get rid of it before somebody came into his house and searched him. So you could take that double up, and you can put it on the street after cutting it with some fucking drywall or some aspirin, baby formula. Like you could cut it, and you could turn it into $600, $800 worth of crack cocaine. This is the problem. My best friend was selling crack cocaine at 14 years old. 14 years old. Do you think it made sense for him to get a goddamn job? No. Do you think there was anybody around him, any resources, telling that young man that he had a chance at being anything? No. What was he surrounded by? Surrounded by Hell's Angels. Surrounded by Mid-City Crips. Surrounded by skinheads and peckerwoods. That answer isn't creating hyperbolic bullshit and claiming that gangs from Venezuela are taking over apartment buildings. Because there's enough people like me out there that know what the fuck this lifestyle actually looks like that goes, they're lying to you. That's not what's happening.
In whatever affiliation they have.
Hey, what up, James?
They're bad. I need them off the street.
Aurora police visited the site last Friday and said it is not under control of a
Laxative,
gang.
yep.
It did, however, say it made an
Opportunity,
unrelated
exactly,
arrest of a member of the
James, you know.
TDA gang in its city last week.
Yeah, and I love this shit because I watched another video. And they're like, they got an international criminal, Cookie. They got Cookie. By the way, the woman who burst into the apartment that I lived in and beat the out of my mom when I was a kid, her name was Cookie. Crazy fact. Fun fact for y'all out there. Her name was Cookie. But wasn't this person. But like, you know that they got this man in a sweep. That's the government doing what it's supposed to do. They got him in a sweep. They didn't get him because fucking he broke into his apartment or he had the gun or no other reason. They're performing a sweep and they got him, which is what is actually supposed to happen in these sweeps.
That man has been turned over to ICE officials.
You really want to fuck somebody
Colorado's
up,
Governor
dude.
Jared Polis, a Democrat, has also chimed in. While he has not spoken directly about the validity of concerns
shit,
about Tren de
James.
Aragua in Aurora,
They're
he
slumlords,
said any and all
yeah.
state assistance is available to help if requested by local police and government.
Dude, in my area, there was like one cop, right? Because they don't want to police those areas. They want to police wealthy areas. They want to police middle-class areas. You know, they don't want to be on the nightly news for shooting another person. Like I said before, my nephew was shot and killed by police officers. You know, like the one dude, you want to know what the one dude was what his nickname was? His nickname was Pac-Man. Because he ate people up, and when they went away, they never came back. They're ghosts. That's the relationship that poor people in these areas have with police officers. You look at Sonia Massey. You look at how many people in these areas, how many people of color, how many minorities have called the police and then been killed by the police for calling the police. These are the problems that we actually need to start to address. You're getting distracted by some dumb cringe shit on the internet talking about a Venezuelan gang taking over apartment complexes because you have no idea how this works. You're asking bikers, Hells Angels that literally kidnap motherfuckers, murder motherfuckers, sell drugs, take over apartment buildings to come in and do something about Venezuelan gangs. Are you stupid? I mean, yeah, you are. It cracked me up to hear this dude talk about people asking the Sons of Silence, the most violent gang in America. Oh.